The first million is a war against your laziness, a war against your excuses, a war against the small voice in your head that tells you to settle for less. Most people never cross that line because they think wealth is about luck, privilege, or being born in the right place at the right time. They lie to themselves. They cling to myths because the truth is too heavy for them to bear. The truth is this: wealth is earned in blood, sweat, and sacrifice. And the first million is the trial by fire that separates the dreamers from the doers. Once you make your first million, you're no longer the same person. You cannot unsee the battlefield once you've fought and survived it. You understand leverage, you understand systems, and most importantly, you understand yourself. That's why the first million is the hardest. Not because it's impossible, but because you must transform into a different creature to achieve it. The weak think it's about working harder. No. Hard work alone will never make you rich. The graveyards are full of people who worked hard all their lives and died broke. The game is about alignment with eternal principles, concepts older than any economy, sharper than any market strategy. If you live by them, you rise. If you ignore them, you rot. Lesson 1. Ruthless focus. If you want your first million, you must understand this. The world is designed to scatter you. Every notification, every headline, every meaningless conversation. These are not accidents. They are traps. Distractions are the chains forged by a society that feeds on mediocrity. And most people will die chained, never realizing their attention was the most valuable currency they ever owned. Focus is not optional. Focus is survival. Focus is the weapon that cuts through the fog when everyone else is lost in noise. Without ruthless focus, you will be pulled in 100 directions, each one stealing your energy until nothing remains. Think about it. How many people do you know who want to be successful, yet they're dabbling in 5 projects, chasing 10 different opportunities, and quitting all of them halfway? That's not ambition. That's scattered desperation. And desperation creates poverty. The man who tries to build 10 fires at once freezes to death because none of them ever get hot enough to burn. The first million demands obsession, not interest, not curiosity. Obsession, the kind of relentless concentration where everything else falls away. When you wake, you think of it. When you eat, you plot. When you fall asleep, it hunts you in your dreams. Ruthless focus doesn't ask for balance. It asks for sacrifice. It asks, what are you willing to give up so that this one thing survives? Because here's the truth no one tells you. Scattered energy builds nothing. It is not enough to work hard. It is not enough to be busy. You can work 14 hours a day on distractions and still starve. But when your energy is aimed like a blade, directed, sharp, relentless, that's when you carve wealth out of the stone. The enemy of focus is comfort. Comfort whispers, why not check your phone? Why not scroll for just 5 minutes? Why not take it easy today? And every time you listen, you surrender. Every time you break your focus, you step further from the million and closer to the grave of mediocrity. The strongest people in history were not always the smartest. They weren't even always the most talented. But they had the ability to lock onto a mission and shut out the noise. They burned bridges behind them so retreat was no longer possible. They went all in. That's ruthless focus. And here's what happens when you master it. Clarity. When your energy is unified, decisions become easier. Progress becomes faster. You stop dabbling and start building. And over time, you realize something powerful. Focus is wealth. Because focus builds skill, skill builds value, and value builds money. Ask yourself, what's stealing my focus? What shallow addictions are pulling me from the mission? How much time do I bleed each day on nonsense that will never make me $1, never move me forward, never free me? Be honest, because this is the line that divides the rich from the poor. The world will call you extreme. They'll say, you've changed. You're obsessed. Good. That's exactly what it takes. Obsession is the price. No empire was ever built by balance. No empire was built by dabbling. Every empire was forged by ruthless, singular focus on one mission until it broke the world open. So if you want your first million, sharpen your blade. Cut out the noise. Eliminate the distractions. Burn the bridges. Focus until your obsession consumes you. Until your mind and your actions are locked onto the goal, like a predator stalking prey. Because until you do, you'll remain like the rest, scattered, broke, and blind. The million is not for the distracted. The million is for the focused, the ruthless, the obsessed. Lesson 2. Value creation above all. Here's the brutal truth. No one cares how hard you work. No one cares how many hours you grind. No one cares about your struggle. The marketplace does not pay for effort. It pays for value. Read that again. Because this single truth separates the rich from the poor. Most people will spend their lives mistaking sweat for success. They believe time equals money. They think the longer they work, the more they deserve. But the marketplace doesn't reward time. It rewards results. A man can work 80 hours a week digging ditches and still die broke, while another creates a tool that removes the need for ditch digging and becomes wealthy beyond imagination. Why? Because one gave effort, the other gave value. Value is solving problems. Value is relieving pain. Value is creating desire and fulfilling it. Every dollar in your bank account is proof of the value you've given to someone else. If your account is empty, it means you haven't given enough value. That's not cruel, it's reality. Ask yourself, what pain am I removing from the world? What desire am I fulfilling? Until you can answer that with brutal clarity, wealth will avoid you. Look at the giants of history. They didn't just work hard, they solved problems. They built systems that made life easier, faster, better. They gave people what they needed before the people even knew they needed it. Wealth is not stolen. Wealth is not luck. Wealth is a reflection of value delivered to the marketplace. And here's the darker side most never face. If you are broke, it's because the world does not need what you are currently offering. That's not an insult. It's a diagnosis. And until you correct it, nothing changes. The masses would rather protect their pride than confront that reality. That's why they stay poor. So how do you create value? You study pain. You study problems. You become obsessed with finding inefficiencies, with fixing what's broken, with giving people back their time, their health, their energy, their peace. If you can save someone 10 hours of wasted work, if you can make them healthier, stronger, richer, happier, they will pay you, and they will pay you well. But here's the key. Value scales. A doctor can save one life at a time. A creator of medical technology can save millions at once. A teacher can teach one student. A platform can teach the world. The greater the scale of the value you create, the greater the wealth that floods towards you. Most will never build wealth because they are too focused on themselves. They ask, "How can I get more money?" The millionaire asks, "How can I give more value?" That's why the millionaire rises while the average man drowns in debt. And don't mistake this for charity. This is not about giving everything away. It's about creating solutions so powerful, so undeniable, that people willingly give you their money in exchange. Value creation is not self-sacrifice. It is self-mastery. The test is simple. Look at your bank account. That's the scoreboard. If you don't like the number, increase the value you bring. The market never lies. It doesn't care about your excuses, your effort, or your feelings. It only reflects the truth of your value. So kill the illusion that hard work alone will save you. It won't. Kill the belief that time equals money. It doesn't. Wealth belongs to those who master value. Wealth belongs to those who obsess over solving problems. Wealth belongs to those who look at the world's pain and say, "I can fix that. And I will." The first million isn't just about making money. It's about transforming yourself into someone the world cannot ignore. Someone who creates so much value that wealth becomes a side effect. So burn this into your mind. If you want the million, stop chasing money. Chase value. Money will follow like a shadow that never leaves. Lesson 3. Leverage is king. The poor work with their hands. The rich work with leverage. That's the brutal divide. Understand this. Leverage is the force multiplier of wealth. Without it, you are chained to your own limited time, your own limited energy, your own limited reach. And if all you do is trade hours for dollars, you will spend your life crawling through the mud of survival while others rise to empires. Hard work without leverage is slavery. Think about it. You have 24 hours in a day, just like everyone else. No matter how hard you grind, there's a ceiling. But the ones who master leverage shatter that ceiling. They turn 1 hour into 1,000. They turn one action into a ripple that touches millions. That's the difference between a man who dies broke and a man who becomes immortal through his wealth. Leverage comes in many forms. Money. When your dollars work for you, they multiply themselves. The poor spend money on consumption. The rich use money as a weapon. They buy assets. They invest in systems. They use capital to create more capital. A dollar that sleeps is wasted. A dollar that works becomes an army. Technology. Machines don't sleep. Algorithms don't get tired. Software doesn't ask for a raise. If you learn to wield technology, you can duplicate yourself endlessly. One piece of code can replace hundreds of hours. One automation can free you from chains that others still call a job. Content. One video. One book. One message. Produced once. Consumed 1,000,000 times. That's leverage. Words that spread without your presence. Value that multiplies without you being there. If you're not creating something that lives beyond your time, you are still a prisoner. People. A true leader builds teams, not just incomes. One person working alone can build a house. A team, directed with vision, can build a city. The poor fear hiring others because they cling to control. The rich understand that leverage through people is what builds dynasties. Here's the dark reality. If you're still doing everything yourself, you're not building wealth. You're building a cage. You may think you're in control, but really, you're enslaved to your own labor. Wealth is freedom, and freedom only comes when you multiply your output through leverage. Consider this. One man digs with a shovel. Another invents a machine that digs 100 times faster. Both work, but one dies tired, the other dies rich. The difference wasn't effort, it was leverage. And leverage is ruthless. It does not care about fairness. It does not care about effort. It rewards intelligence, creativity, and courage. It rewards those who dare to step back, see the bigger picture, and say, how can I multiply this instead of just doing more of it? That is the question that builds empires. Most never ask it. They're too busy grinding, too busy running on the hamster wheel, mistaking motion for progress. They tell themselves they're hustling, when in truth, they're digging their own grave. Because without leverage, the harder you work, the deeper you bury yourself. But when you embrace leverage, everything changes. Money starts working when you sleep. Systems run when you're gone. Content spreads while you're silent. Teams execute when you're not there. That's when you've stepped out of survival and into power. So here's the law. If you want your first million, you must master leverage. You must stop being a slave to your own time and start multiplying your output through tools, capital, systems, and people. Leverage is not optional. It is the dividing line. On one side is poverty, working until death, exhausted, chained, forgotten. On the other side is wealth, machines, systems, and armies working while you live free. And the choice is yours. Stay a slave to your own effort, or wield leverage like a sword and carve your first million out of the stone of reality. Lesson 4. The power of compounding. Everyone wants wealth fast. They want the million tomorrow. They want shortcuts, hacks, the magic formula. That hunger for instant gratification is why most people die broke. They don't understand the most ruthless and unshakable law of wealth, the law of compounding. Compounding is not a suggestion. It is not a trick. It is the iron law of growth that governs money, skills, knowledge, relationships, and even power itself. Ignore it, and you will always remain small. Align with it, and the results will appear unstoppable, inevitable, almost supernatural. Here's the dark truth. Compounding starts slow, painfully slow. It feels like nothing is happening. Days, weeks, months of effort look wasted. You pour in energy, discipline, consistency, and the returns seem microscopic. This is the graveyard where most people quit. They give up in the early stages because they can't handle delayed gratification. They can't see the avalanche forming. But compounding punishes the impatient, and it rewards the relentless. Because while the early years feel like stagnation, something monstrous is building beneath the surface. Small gains stack. Repetitions accumulate. Knowledge layers on knowledge. Investments feed investments. Discipline fuels more discipline. And then one day the curve bends. That's the moment when everything you've built begins to accelerate beyond control. Growth goes from invisible to undeniable. People call it luck, but luck had nothing to do with it. It was compounding. It was the reward for staying the course when others fell away. Compounding doesn't just belong to money, it belongs to mastery. Do you want to dominate an industry? Study every single day for years and watch how your brain evolves beyond recognition. Do you want to be unstoppable in business? Stack consistent action day after day until momentum becomes your slave. Do you want power? Build relationships, one after another, until the weight of your network makes you untouchable. The tragedy is that most people waste compounding in the opposite direction. They let bad habits compound. Laziness compounds. Debt compounds. Fear compounds. Every cigarette smoked, every wasted dollar, every day lost to procrastination. It all stacks, quietly, invisibly, until one day, it crushes them. Compounding is ruthless, because it works both ways. It can build you into a god, or bury you alive. This is why your first million feels impossible in the beginning. Because it is. You start with scraps. You invest pennies. You gain inches. You fight for drops of progress. And it feels like you're crawling through hell for nothing. But if you endure, if you keep feeding the system, the growth becomes exponential. The first 100,000 takes years. The second comes faster. The third multiplies on its own. By the time you pass the million, the momentum is so great it feels like the world itself is carrying you forward. Compounding is the silent partner of every millionaire. It's the invisible hand stacking results behind closed doors while the rest of the world sleeps. It doesn't care if you're tired. It doesn't care if you're discouraged. It rewards the disciplined and annihilates the weak. So here's the law. Play the long game. Refuse to quit in the desert. Refuse to surrender when the early results are invisible. Every seed you plant compounds. Every discipline compounds. Every dollar invested compounds. The only question is, are you patient enough? Relentless enough? Disciplined enough to outlast the drought until the flood arrives? The masses will never understand this. They want quick wins, instant glory, immediate gratification. That is why they stay poor. That is why they die without ever seeing the power of compounding unleashed. But you must be different. You must bleed now so that the explosion comes later. Remember this. Compounding is not just a principle. It is the law of reality. It is the hidden engine of all greatness. Align with it, and the million is inevitable. Betray it, and poverty becomes your destiny. Lesson 5. Mastering emotional discipline. The battlefield of wealth is not the stock market. It's not the business world. It's not even the competition standing in your way. The real battlefield is inside your own head, and the enemies are fear, greed, doubt, anger, and impatience. If you do not master them, they will master you. Most people will never reach their first million because they are prisoners of their own emotions. They chase when they should wait. They panic when they should stay calm. They quit when they should endure. Their feelings run their decisions, and feelings are unreliable tyrants. Wealth does not belong to the emotional. Wealth belongs to the disciplined. Understand this. Money amplifies emotion. When you win, greed whispers, take more, push harder, risk everything. When you lose, fear screams, run, escape, quit before it gets worse. And most people obey these voices like slaves. That's why they buy at the top and sell at the bottom. That's why they quit the very moment victory was near. But the millionaire operates differently. The millionaire is cold, calm, calculated, not because he lacks emotion, but because he commands it. He feels fear, but he does not obey it. He feels greed, but he does not bow to it. He feels doubt, but he does not surrender to it. His discipline is greater than his feelings, and that is what gives him power. Think of the warrior on the battlefield. His heart races, his mind screams, his instincts tell him to run, but he doesn't. He steadies his hand, grips his sword, and moves forward. That is emotional discipline. And in the war for wealth, the principle is the same. The weak let their emotions dictate their actions. The strong dictate their actions regardless of emotion. That's the difference between poverty and power. Consider this. The markets will rise and fall. Businesses will face setbacks. Life will throw storms at you. If your emotions control you, every storm will break you. But if you master discipline, no storm can touch you. While others panic, you will see opportunity. While others quit, you will endure. And endurance always wins. The cost of emotional weakness is staggering. How many dreams have died because someone quit out of frustration? How many fortunes have been lost because someone got greedy? How many lives have been wasted because fear held them captive? Emotional weakness is the silent killer of success. So how do you master emotional discipline? You build it the same way a warrior builds strength, through training. You expose yourself to discomfort. You face fear daily until it bends to your will. You practice patience when everything inside you screams for speed. You control your reactions until your reactions no longer control you. And you must decide, here and now, that discipline comes first. Not your comfort, not your impulses. Discipline. Because every decision you make will either enslave you to your emotions or free you from them. The truth is this: wealth is a test of character. It asks, can you stay calm in chaos? Can you endure when nothing is working? Can you resist when temptation whispers? Most fail this test, but if you pass it, if you conquer yourself, the world cannot stop you. The greatest war you will ever fight is not against the competition. It's against your own mind. Win that war, and the million becomes inevitable. Lose that war, and it doesn't matter how smart you are, how hard you work, or how many opportunities come your way. You will sabotage yourself every single time. So master this law. Emotions are not your guide. They are your enemy. Discipline is your guide. Discipline is your ally. Discipline is your sword and shield in the war for wealth. Fear, greed, doubt, impatience. These are chains. Break them, and you will walk free. Break them, and the world opens to you. Break them, and the first million is yours. Because the moment you master emotional discipline, you are untouchable. Lesson 6. Ownership and responsibility. If you want your first million, you must learn this truth. Excuses are the language of the poor. The world is full of people pointing fingers. They blame the government, the economy, their boss, their parents, their past. They build stories about why they can't succeed, and then they wonder why their lives never change. Excuses are poison. They feel comforting in the moment, but they rot your future. The harsh reality is this: no one cares about your excuses. The marketplace doesn't care. Success doesn't care. The million doesn't care. Results are the only language this world respects. Either you produce them or you didn't. And until you accept that, you will remain powerless. Ownership is the dividing line. The moment you take full responsibility for your life, everything changes. You stop waiting for a savior. You stop blaming the storm. You stop looking for someone else to fix what's broken. Instead, you take the weight of your life on your shoulders and declare, every outcome is mine. Every failure is mine. Every victory will be mine. That's the mindset of wealth. That's the mindset of freedom. Because here's the dark truth. When you blame others, you hand them your power. You become a victim, chained to their actions. But when you accept full responsibility, even for things outside your control, you reclaim your power. You may not control the storm, but you control how you respond. And it is your response that determines whether you rise or collapse. Responsibility is heavy. That's why most people run from it. They'd rather live light, blaming everyone else, staying fragile, weak, and broke. But the strong, The strong carry that weight and grow stronger from it. They welcome responsibility because they know it's the gateway to control. Look at any true leader, any self-made millionaire, any empire builder. They did not rise by chance. They rose because they took ownership when others hid. They accepted the burden others refused. They said, "If it is to be, it's up to me." That single belief forged their destiny. When you take responsibility, excuses die. And when excuses die, action begins. Ownership forces you to look in the mirror and say, "If I don't like where I am, it's because of me. And if I want to change it, I must change me." That's power. That's freedom. That's the beginning of wealth. But here's the darker side. Responsibility never ends. Once you take it, you can never put it down. That's why it feels heavy. You can't blame bad luck. You can't point at the system. You can't cry about being tired. Once you take responsibility, every failure is yours to own, but every success is yours to claim. And the first million will demand this of you. Along the path, there will be setbacks. Deals will collapse. Plans will fail. People will betray you. The weak will cry, "It's not fair." The strong will say, "Good. It's mine to fix." And in fixing it, they grow sharper, smarter, deadlier. Understand this. No empire was ever built by victims. Empires are built by warriors who accept full responsibility for everything in their world. That's how they stay in control. That's how they create outcomes when others are paralyzed. So here's the law. Kill your excuses. Stop pointing fingers. Stop blaming anyone or anything outside yourself. Take ownership of everything. Your failures, your results, your destiny. Only then will you have the clarity and control to forge your first million. Ownership is the way to freedom, and freedom is worth the wait. Lesson 7. Build systems, not just income. Most people chase income. They want a bigger paycheck, a higher hourly rate, a fatter commission. They think money is the answer, so they work harder, grind longer, and trade more of their life for scraps. But here's the truth that will break you free or break your pride. Income is a trap. Systems are freedom. If you are trading time for money, you are still in chains. You may have golden handcuffs, you may feel successful, but you are still a prisoner. Why? Because the moment you stop working, the money stops flowing. You are a machine that powers your own survival. And machines break. Machines burn out. Machines die. Wealth is not built on income. Wealth is built on systems. Systems that operate when you're asleep. Systems that keep multiplying while you're gone. Systems that don't require your constant presence, your constant labor, or your constant attention. Think about it. A man with a job earns only when he's present. A man with a business that depends entirely on him is barely better. He's built himself another job with a different name. But a man with systems, a man with assets, processes, and structures that function without him, that man is free. Your first million will not come from running faster on the hamster wheel. It will come from stepping off the wheel and building something that runs without you. It will come from creating leverage through systems that multiply your effort beyond what one person could ever do. This is why true wealth builders obsess over systems. Business systems, processes, automations, and structures that allow value to flow without your constant involvement. If your business collapses the moment you step away, it is not a business. It's a job disguised as one. Financial systems, investments, assets, and accounts that grow on their own. Dividends, rents, royalties, interest, Money compounding while you sleep. That is a system working in silence. Content systems. Messages, books, videos, ideas that spread without your presence. One creation multiplied into thousands of impressions, views, or sales. This is digital leverage at its finest. People systems, teams, leaders, and structures that carry out the mission without you needing to micromanage every detail. True leaders don't just build businesses, they build armies. The problem is that most people are addicted to being needed. They like feeling busy. They like being the center of everything. But this addiction is death to wealth. If everything depends on you, you will never escape. You will always be capped by your own capacity. The wealthy understand this. They build systems precisely to remove themselves. They design machines that operate with or without their presence. They think in terms of structures, not sprints. And because of that, their income scales beyond their time, beyond their energy, beyond their mortality. Here's the dark side. Building systems is harder than just chasing income. It requires patience. It requires vision. It requires the willingness to step back and build infrastructure while everyone else is chasing quick cash. It feels slower in the beginning, but in the end, it explodes into freedom. Your first million is not just about stacking dollars. It's about stacking systems. Each one is a soldier that works for you. Each one is a process that keeps multiplying. Each one is a machine that doesn't sleep. And once enough of them are in place, money flows whether you're awake or not. So here's the law. Stop obsessing over income. Stop measuring success by how much you made this week or this month. Ask instead, what systems did I build that will keep paying me for years? That's the real scoreboard. Income is survival. Systems are power. If you want the million, stop being a worker, even if you're working for yourself, and start being an architect. Build machines, build processes, build assets, build structures that set you free. Because the day you stop working and the money still flows, that's the day you know you've crossed the line. That's the day you're no longer a prisoner. That's the day you've built wealth. Lesson 8. Play the long game. Impatience is poverty. That's the law. Everyone wants quick money. Everyone wants shortcuts, the secret hack, the one move that'll flip their life overnight. And because they crave it fast, they never build anything that lasts. They chase, they sprint, they gamble, and then they collapse. The graveyard of broken dreams is filled with people who quit too soon or burn themselves out chasing speed. Wealth is not built in a day. Your first million will not appear in a week, a month, or even a year. It is not lightning. It is fire. And fire takes time to build. You gather the wood. You strike the spark. You shield it from the wind until it grows. And when it finally catches, it becomes unstoppable. But the fools want fire without patience. They want results without process. And so they die cold, shivering in the dark. Playing the long game means accepting this brutal truth. The path will be slow, the journey will test you, and the rewards will not come instantly. It means you keep moving forward even when nothing seems to be working. It means you plant seeds knowing you may not eat the harvest for years. It means you refuse to break when the drought comes, because you know the flood always follows. The masses cannot handle this. They are addicted to instant gratification. They'll abandon a strategy the moment it doesn't give them immediate payoff. They'll sell when fear spikes, quit when results lag, pivot endlessly, chasing illusions. They never give anything enough time to compound. That is why they stay broke. That is why they stay weak. But the millionaire thinks differently. The millionaire plays decades, not days. He builds structures that endure. He invests in seeds that compound year after year. He suffers through the desert with unwavering belief because he knows time is his greatest ally. Understand this. Time will either be your executioner or your ally. If you waste it chasing quick wins, it will slaughter you. But if you align with it, if you commit to the long game, time itself begins to fight for you. Time compounds your investments, compounds your discipline, compounds your results until the growth becomes exponential. The long game requires patience, but patience is not passive. It's not sitting around waiting. It's consistent action, relentless effort, day after day, regardless of whether the results are visible yet. It's faith backed by discipline. It's waking up every morning, putting in the work, and knowing the payoff will come, even if you can't see it yet. Here's the reality. Wealth doesn't reward the fastest. It rewards the one who refuses to stop. You will face setbacks. You will lose money. You will feel doubt gnawing at you. And in those moments, the weak will quit. They'll say, "It wasn't meant to be." The strong will say, "Good. I expected this. I'll keep going anyway." That's the difference. The million doesn't belong to sprinters. It belongs to marathoners. It belongs to those who endure, who outlast, who keep building brick by brick while others crumble. So here's the law. Commit to the long game. Stop chasing speed. Stop looking for shortcuts. Plant seeds. Water them daily. Let compounding and time do their work. And refuse, absolutely refuse, to quit, no matter how barren the field looks in the beginning. Because one day, the harvest will come. And when it does, it will be so abundant the world will call it luck. But you will know the truth. It wasn't luck. It was the long game. It was patience. It was endurance. It was the refusal to die in the desert when everyone else gave up. The long game is not glamorous. It is slow, it is painful, it is lonely. But it is also the only path to power. And if you want your first million, you must embrace it. Because in the end, the world cannot defeat the one who refuses to stop. You've heard the laws. Ruthless focus, value creation, leverage, compounding, emotional discipline, ownership, systems, the long game. These are not theories. These are not motivational quotes to scribble in a notebook and forget. These are weapons. Weapons forged in fire, tested through centuries, sharpened on the bones of the weak, and now they sit before you. The question is simple. Will you wield them, or will you waste them? Because understand this, the first million will not come easy. It will not arrive wrapped in comfort. It will demand your blood, your sweat, your silence, your sacrifice. It will break the weaker version of you 1,000 times before you rise. And that is exactly why it is worth it. Because the million is not just money, it is proof. Proof that you have transformed. Proof that you have mastered yourself. Proof that you are no longer a victim of the world, but a builder of it. The masses will keep drifting. They will keep chasing distractions, making excuses, running in circles, waiting for luck. They will die as they lived, scattered, broke, and forgotten. But you are not them. You've seen behind the curtain. You know the truth now. Wealth is not an accident. It is not fate. It is the inevitable result of aligning with these laws and refusing to quit. So choose. Choose to kill distraction and live with ruthless focus. Choose to create value so undeniable, the world has no choice but to pay you. Choose to wield leverage like a sword, to let compounding fight for you, to command your emotions instead of being enslaved by them. Choose to take full ownership, to build systems that set you free, and to play the long game until time itself bows to your persistence. The million is waiting, not for the lucky, not for the privileged, not for the entitled. It is waiting for the one who is willing to bleed, to endure, to transform. It is waiting for you to rise as the warrior you were meant to be. But hear this warning. These laws do not forgive half measures. You cannot dabble in them. You cannot play with them. You must burn the weaker self and step fully into the fire. Because once you commit, there's no going back. So decide. Decide now. Will you stay where you are, scattered, enslaved, forgotten? Or will you step into the darkness, wield these laws like weapons, and carve your first million out of the stone of reality? Because once you do, once you cross that line, nothing and no one will ever own you again.